Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. I am your host, Brittany. How are you doing? How are we? I don't know. How do I normally start? How do I normally start a podcast? Why am I having a hard time? All right, hold on. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. I'm your host, Brittany, and how are we doing? Are we doing amazing? And if we're not doing amazing, I hope you're doing amazing after this episode, because that's what we're here for. Anyways, so I figured I would start with, naturally, we're going to start with Deep Thoughts by Brittany. So I got to thinking, and I'm going to be totally transparent. I don't know if this was an intentional or not intentional. I don't know if this was an original thought or if I heard it and then it got me thinking. So if I heard it somewhere, I'm not claiming that this is original, but the thought was, why does leather smell so good, but dead cows don't smell good at all? Like genuinely, right? Like, you remember walking by Wilson's and you could smell it 2 doors down. You're like, the leather store. And it smelled so good. And, you go and get your car detailed and they're like, what do you want your car to smell like? New car smell? Leather, right? You get to pick. It's a thing. We want our stuff to smell like leather because leather smells great. Little pine trees in the windshield, leather smell. Nobody's offering you dead cow smell. Nobody's offering you, dead cow air freshener. But why? I mean, not why are they not offering that? Because also that would be really disgusting and we would need to talk about getting you checked out. I mean, to each their own, but that would be gross. But why is it? Why does leather smell good? What are they doing to the leather that makes it smell so good? And it keeps that smell forever, right? Like, new car smell goes away. Leather smells like leather all the time. I remember my dad had this leather jacket and it was like my favorite thing in the whole wide world because it just smelled like leather all the time. And I kind of associated that with my dad. I have a leather jacket. It's not real leather. That's okay though. It doesn't smell like that. Anyways, so there's that. If anybody, am I alone? Has anybody ever thought that? Or am I just, again, I don't know where I got that idea from. Also, in typical Brittany fashion, throughout the week, I was writing down things that came up along the way. And since my friend is in town, what am I talking about? So with my friend being in town, we went to go get Mexican because, like, let's go get Mexican food. It's delicious. Everybody loves Mexican food. And while we were at Mexican food, we saw the people next to us had a picture of margarita. And I'm like, a picture of margarita? That's what? You can't, what? Is that real? And everybody was like, yeah, just order a pitcher. It's way cheaper with the amount of margaritas that you guys are having. Like, obviously. I didn't know that they could do pitcher of margarita. When I lived in Virginia, they could not do pitcher of margarita per ABC laws. And so I just thought that, I never really thought about it again. And I've never seen a pitcher of margarita here in Denver. So then I start talking to people, telling people, like, oh my God, did you know they serve pitcher of margaritas? Everybody's like, yeah. Like, everybody in the state, out of the state, all across the land, everybody but me and my friend knew pitcher of margarita. What? How did we all know this? How did I not know this? And obviously we went back another day and got a pitcher of margarita because yes, please. And thank you. Also, we were out and I saw a hummingbird, and it reminded me of this time that I was hiking and I saw a hummingbird in Colorado, and I was like, there's hummingbirds in Colorado? And everybody looked at me like I was absolutely ridiculously dumb for not knowing this. And I'm like, I grew up here. I'm from here. I never saw a hummingbird in Colorado ever as a child, ever. And I used to get really excited to go out to California to my great grandmother's house because there was lots of hummingbirds. So I do what I do and I Google, is hummingbird native to Colorado? And when was the first year the hummingbird arrived in Colorado? Because I was really determined to be like, excuse me, hummingbirds did not arrive to Colorado until 2012. False. They've always been here. They, and Google will tell you perhaps not always, but for centuries. So given that I am not centuries old, I guess they've always been here for me. So I'm like, why am I always the last to know? I didn't know about hummingbirds. I didn't know about margaritas, pitcher of margaritas. So I need to get on. I need to catch up. I need to catch up. Get with the program. All right. That's what I got. My ache and relief of the week. Oh my God. My ache is utter sadness and despair. My baby kitten is missing. She left last week. Went on an adventure, kamikazed off the patio, went on an adventure. She's been gone for almost a week now. And go figure, her air tag is dead. So I can't track her. What the fuck is the purpose of an air tag if you can't track her? Also, I have her posted everywhere. I have her posted all over the interwebs. I have her posted all over the interwebs. I have her posted on different sites and whatever. And they notify you. They notify shelters, they notify the pound, and they notify you. And they also send you, they use AI to scan, like, I don't know, facial recognition of cats. And so I get all of these, like, is this your cat? Is this your cat? Is this your cat? I got one from the shelter and I was like, well, maybe that's her. I go down to the shelter, I check it out. And the lady's like, this can't be your cat because it's not a lost cat. This cat is here from a owner surrender yesterday. And I was just like, but it came up as lost. It's listed on your site as lost. And she's like, well, it's not. Like, way to get my hopes up. Anyways, so I still am missing a kitten. I feel horrible. I feel like the worst cat mom in the whole wide world. And so there's that. That's my ache of the week. So everybody send me your prayers because my baby kitten is missing. And we hope that she is safe in the big bad scary land. Also, my relief, my AC is fixed. Holy moly. If you didn't know, now you know. My AC has been out since always, since forever. And now there is AC. I was like, okay, we're getting this AC going, I guess. And it is so nice to not have it be 96 degrees inside of the house and it be like a normal human being temperature. It's divine. It's divine. Orgasmic, even. So that's exciting. That's exciting news. We love that. All right. I feel like I just ran a marathon. I don't know why I'm out of breath. I'm over here like huffing and puffing, like, like I ran up the zero oxygen stairwell. I didn't. Anyways. Okay. Last week we talked about how hard it is to make adult friendships. And then at the end, I said that we were going to use this episode today to talk about the friendship breakup. Dun, dun, dun. And so we're going to talk about the friendship breakup and how that one, it just hits different. It hits different than like a romantic breakup or something like that. So I thought we would start off by, acknowledging that, like, that there is a grief to losing a friendship, whether that friendship was 6 months or 16 years or whatever. Like, there is grief to losing a friend. And people don't like to use those words because we associate grief and loss with like death. And you are allowed to grieve people that are no longer around, even if they still are walking around. And it's hard. So that's why I was like, let's talk about that. Let's acknowledge that, right? There's no breakup playlist that's created for a friend, right? Toni Braxton didn't didn't write break my heart, say you love me again for her best friend. That was not written for the bestie. There's also like, you're welcome. I'm feeling very singy today. I have had a Taylor Swift song stuck in my head all day, just side note, and I'm regretting that because last week I was like, oh God, the Muppet song. I would do anything, even a Taylor Swift song. I have Taylor Swift stuck in my head now and it won't go away. So here we are. Anyway, there, along with no playlist, there's also no support group. You don't get to go sit down and be like, hi, my name is Brittany and I miss my bestie. And everybody be like, welcome, Brittany. No, there's no support group for this one either. So that one's hard. It's also hard to like even talk about that sometimes because potentially you have similar friend circles. And so if you go and you're talking about it, then it just comes off like you're like gossiping or bad mouthing your friends. And that's not the intent either. So you're really just carrying this weird grief around that you can't do a whole lot with, which sucks. And then social media and work and just again with the common friends, those all make it a little bit harder, right? Social media, you see the things, we still have access to one another or they have access to you depending. And if it was a work bestie, now you're still at work together. So yes, you still are seeing them and now you're navigating like ships in the night when 2 months ago you guys were crying over your most recent breakup and a tub of Ben and Jerry's or so many mimosas at breakfast, brunch. We love brunch. And then, you see them and you see them still like thriving, right? That's a thing too, to see them thriving. And you're like, damn, that shit hurts. I'm so happy for you. And I know why we're not friends, or maybe you don't. I think that that's a thing too. I put a lot of polls and questions out this past week leading up to this episode. And that was definitely a write-in. It was like, yeah, like we just stopped talking and I don't even know why. And that's brutal and it hurts. And so that happens. So maybe you don't know why. But then you see him over here thriving and you're like, damn, like congrats. And also bummer because we're not friends anymore. You have that. I think a lot of friends, you might hear it like, oh, we just drifted apart. We just drifted apart. And maybe you did just drift apart, but it still hurts. It still is sad. You can be like, oh man, I remember when we did those things, or I miss doing those things. And weird, now time's passed. So I think it's important to remember that like friendships don't necessarily have to be toxic for them to be over either. Right. We did talk last week a little bit about, just the growth, the healing, the change, life circumstances, all of those types of things. So not everything is all negative. It's really not. Friendships don't have to be toxic for them to end. So, like I know everybody can relate because like I said, I put out a bunch of polls, I put out a bunch of questions, and like they were the most engaged posts and polls I've ever seen. Yay, community. We love that for us. But so a couple of the polls and stuff that I posted. God, words. I am so tongue-tied today. I posted, have you ever had a friend breakup? 90% of you guys said, yep, and it still hurts. And 10% of you guys said, no, but maybe I should. Okay. I feel that. I asked, is it harder to leave a relationship or a friendship? And I got a lot of, it depends, which I feel that as well. So a lot of it depends. And then somebody even said the worst is when they're your best friend and your person. And that that would be tough. That's extra tough, right? So definitely, that's definitely a thing. And have you outgrown someone but not told them? 86% of you said, unfortunately, yes, you have outgrown someone and you haven't told them and they're still hanging out. And then 14% of you said, nope, everyone still fits. So lots of people are understanding, like we are able to connect and empathize on this particular topic about friendships. We love our friends and it's sad whenever they end or we outgrow them or whatever. I think there's different types of friendship breakups. I mean, just like a relationship, but like there's different types of friendship breakups. So you have like the gray area breakup where maybe there was no fight, there was no betrayal, there was never like this massive explosion that was like, yes, now this happened and we're done. It didn't happen. There wasn't anything like that. There where maybe that gray area is also you didn't really do anything wrong, but it just doesn't feel right anymore. So now it's over. Or guilt of letting go when you can't really even explain it, right? You can't explain why this relationship just doesn't fit anymore, why this friendship doesn't fit anymore. It just doesn't. And then you're kind of guilty about it because you're like, damn, we were friends for so long. And why can't I identify this? Why can't I figure it out? So I think those can be a little bit tricky. I also believe those happen a lot as adults whenever you start moving around. Like if you move place to place, if you move out of state. I know that there was friends that I had whenever I was in Virginia that I had that we were close. They did going away parties for me. We were there up until the time I left and we just don't talk anymore. And it's like, damn, that's sad. Those were my friends. I was with them all the time and why aren't we talking anymore? I don't know. But the friendship just sort of ended. And that's one of those situations where, like, yeah, I still see him on social media, but it's also like, do I engage? Do I not? Do I reach out? It puts it in this weird, uncomfortable grayness. And I'm like, oh my God, you and your baby are over there thriving. That's so exciting. I knew you always wanted a baby. Why? But like, we're not friends. And so I don't want to overexert. So it's just like the occasional, so that happens. Or the other side of that, when the breakup of the friendship is messy. Who doesn't like a mess? Nobody likes a mess. Back to that spaghetti jar analogy I used 100 episodes ago. So when the breakup is messy, then you get lots of like the passive aggression, or sometimes just aggression, right? The unsolicited rude comments on a TikTok post or slick comments at work or in the friend group or whenever you just know, or it's a little bit more passive, right? You see some passive aggression, the boundary violations, like when people just cannot for the life of them respect your boundaries and what you've set. Like maybe you've been like, no, we can't talk anymore. And they just keep on and keep on. Or because you have mutual friends, they just keep showing up and, now they're sharing information or sharing things that they shouldn't share. We don't operate well when we're hurt. And that's unfortunate. I think some manipulation happens. I definitely, had a friendship that it was ending. It was more or less done. We were holding on to it for dear life and it was just not happening. And a favor was asked of me that I could not do. I just couldn't make that make sense for my own personal world because of how I operate in my own personal world. And then also because like the favor that was asked of me involved a third party. And I don't know the third party, but the third party is like, super close with this friend of mine. And so it's like now this third party that I don't know would be around me all the time. I don't even know if I want to be friends with you anymore, let alone this person. So it's like that feels weird, that felt off. But then whenever I gave an answer, like it was so the level of gaslighting when I was like, no, that person can't move in with me. That was the ask. Can my friend live with you? You guys could help each other out. Reasonable ask. Not for me though. Like not for me. And, it turned into this great big to do and how disrespectful I was and how I don't do anything for anybody but myself and really, really nasty and escalated so quickly to be that nasty all because I said no. And it's like, no is an answer. No is a complete sentence. And to start having negative things thrown in your face, like that's like, level 10 manipulation. Like I didn't deserve that. It could have just been like, no, that doesn't work for me. And been like, okay, thanks for thinking about it. But the manipulation comes in to try and like save a relationship or to like manipulate it to change the scenario, to make you a villain so that somebody else doesn't feel bad. And it's kind of like not every story needs a villain, but people do sometimes. I think there's also the friend who changes up on you when you heal. And we did talk about that for the past 2 episodes a little bit, right? Like your healing journey might lead to friendships dissolving because people liked you the most when you liked yourself the least. And that's really unfortunate. And I heard something else the other day too that was that said, I am friends with people that need to be loved, but that doesn't mean that they know how to love me. And so it was this very interesting like thought process that you just give yourself and give yourself and give yourself to certain people that need love, right? You're hurting. I know you need love, or you're in this bad spot. I know you need love. And so here's these friendships, but then they're kind of one-sided and it doesn't go both ways because people don't always know how to love back. So, for friendships, that's tricky as well. And so then people change. People change when you heal. People change along all of those journeys. Or again, when they do too, right? Obviously, this goes both ways. It always goes both ways. Not respecting your need for space and then to take it personal. I was friends. I would call my stepmother my friend because she's not my mom. I never wanted another mom. I don't need another mom. I don't need this maternal figure. So we had a friendly relationship. And whenever things kind of went sideways, I had asked for some space. I was like, please give me a minute. Like, I'm not okay with what just went down and I need some space. And she very much flipped that on me and turns that into something very, very negative and was like, I'm doing my best. I'm trying so hard. I just want to make things right again. And it's like, I didn't say that you didn't. I'm saying I'm not ready and I need some space. Let me heal for a minute. And she really continued to just go on and go in hard on that one and then take it personally that I needed space. Like me saying I needed space was saying, I don't ever want to talk to you again. No, I just am asking for a minute. And that minute needs to be my minute. That minute doesn't need to be your minute. And so, that's not respecting my boundaries. That's all of those types of things. And when people can't respect our boundaries, it's ultimately very, very, very disrespectful. And that's not what solid relationships and friendships are made out of. So we have to be mindful of those things. We know where my stance is with suicide. And so at this point, I'm definitely the friend that's like, I'm going to take every like suicidal ideation seriously. I'm not going to brush it off. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're having a bad day. I'm not going to be like, oh, it's so sad. No, we're not having these conversations. If you're serious, we're going to get help. We're going to we're going to call somebody. We're going to go to the doctor. And I had a friend who continued to say horrible things. Like she was going to hurt herself. She was going to hurt herself because of all of the reasons. Like that's not my story to share, but she was very adamant about this. And I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot. And it was back to that, well, you should know, like you of all people, like with everything that happened with your brother, you should be more supportive and you should be able to have these conversations. No, I should not. 122%. I should not. I cannot. Like I cannot do these things again. I'm not in that position to do them again. I don't want to do them again. And also, like, if this is genuinely how you're feeling, that is a real life concern, and we need to get some help on that. We're not just saying these things and expecting me, of all people, to be like, yeah, sure. That's cool. No. So, like, not respecting boundaries and not really understanding what our friends can and can't handle or will and will not tolerate really can be a breaking point, but it can make the ending of that friendship very messy and very complicated, because then there's a lot of hurt feelings and there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of resentment, which also can have a lot of sadness behind it, but it's coming with a lot of anger and resentment versus some of those like gray area breakups that we talked about, where it just sort of like fades away, fizzles out, time passes type situation. You don't really know what happened. You don't know where that stopping point was. So those feel different, obviously, and they're identified differently. The aftermath of the breakup, and that's the same as like there wasn't a playlist. There's no Tony Braxton song for that. There's also like there's no ritual, and there's like no breakup talk to get you prepared. You just sort of like stop. You just stop being friends. You're not usually having conversations like, okay, we're going to work on this, and if not, then we're going to stop being friends now, right? You're not going to couples counseling to try and save a marriage or anything like that. Like, it's just a very different, you just kind of like stop. And then whenever it's done, whenever it's over, people still lurk. Like I said, social media and the way things are set up these days allows people to just continue to lurk in the shadows, right? And it's not the same as like a breakup where you're like, okay, cold turkey, you know, I'm going to block everybody. I'm going to do this. So you do tend to like just linger around and see, or you have friends of friends that you can still linger and see certain things through it. So you have the lurkers, but it's also like, can you fully mourn the loss of this friendship if they're still lurking in like your comments and they're still seeing what that it's still there? Like, can you fully mourn that? I mean, it ended, but they're still right there. They're still constantly popping up. So then it's kind of like, how do we just let that go? How do we just let it go? I don't know the answer. It makes it very challenging. And it hurts different. It hurts different than a relationship for a bunch of different reasons, right? Like, it ends, there's no script, there's no blueprint, there's no Kate Hudson did not make a rom-com for the friendship breakup. So we don't constantly see it. We don't see how to navigate that. We don't see what's going to make it better. We don't see or understand. It's just kind of a foreign concept and a foreign feeling a lot of times. Friendships feel foundational, right? You guys are building next to one another, not around one another, right? You get into a relationship and you start to build your world around each other, navigating that. But a lot of times your friendships, you're building next to one another. You came together very organically, whether it was at work or it was in school or you guys grew up together, the neighbor, wherever you're finding friends at, that happened very organically, happened because of a lot of like common interests. If you met in school, you were going to school side by side, right? You're in college, you're going to school side by side, you're graduating side by side, you're doing these things next to one another and growing together. And it just fits very naturally, very, very organically. It's just you guys, right? Like, I think a lot of times romantic relationships, you kind of know that there's the possibility that they're going to have an expiration date, right? I'm not saying you're going into that thinking like, oh, I'm here for a good, I mean, sometimes you are. Hello, Tinder. But like, you're not going into that being like, oh, I'm just here for a good time. Not necessarily. So you go into a relationship knowing that there's the potential that it's not going to work out. It's going to have an expiration date. That's not really how friendships build and form and grow. You go into a friendship thinking it's going to, like, you guys are going to be BFFs, besties forever, right? Like that's how friends are made. And you don't really think, oh, well, we might break up. me and my friend might break up. You don't think that way. It's not the plan or even something that is really thought about or foreseen. So then you're kind of left wondering, like, well, did I fail? What happened to this? Was I a good friend? Was I a bad friend? Right? If it's a romantic relationship, a lot of times you kind of know where the fault lies, and if it was in you or if it was in both of you. These are obvious things. But then like that friendship is like, what happened? How did this just end? It's not always so obvious. There's not a breakup talk, right? Like I already said, you're not sitting down to be like, okay, do we need to break up? Is this serving us? Yes. Okay, let's keep being friends. Or no. Okay, I don't think we should be friends anymore. Like that sounds very like on the playground, right? I'm not your friend anymore. You didn't let me swing. Like we're not having those types of conversations. And so that means there's also no real closure for friendships whenever they end. Like I said, sometimes they just fizzle and fade. And it's weird. It feels weird. It feels empty. There's a piece that doesn't make sense to that. And like your friends knew you, like really knew you, right? Your friends knew all of the random people that you were hooking up with on Tinder. They know the stories. They know the good side of you, the bad side of you, the silly side of you. They've seen you ugly cry. They've seen you laugh so hard you pee your pants, right? Your friends see all of these parts of you that not all romantic relationships see. Again, obviously, if you've been married for 100 years, that's kind of the thing. That's why you stay married. But like if you're just dating, just having relationships, sometimes those are the pieces you're keeping away from the romantic partner. You don't want them to see that. You don't want them to know your weird nighttime routine. You want them to think that you just wake up looking like an angelic angel all the time. Your friends know that you don't. Your friends know that you don't. Your friends know all of the deep secrets long before a romantic partner does. And some that even those romantic partners never know. Your friends know these things. They know you deeply, deeply. And then when they're gone, that's like Fort Knox that relationship just ended. That's tough. That's tough. And then who do you go for that? If that was your person, now who do you go to? So, those are the things that make the friendship breakup tough. So many times you do just have to say, I still love the version of me who laughed with you, but that doesn't mean I want to go back to that. You don't have to. You can love that. You can miss that. And you can stand strong in your resolve that relationship didn't feed my soul anymore, right? It didn't fill my bucket anymore. And it's not good for me. I don't want to go back to that. Friendship breakups don't come with closure. There's no big dramatic send off. It's not you, it's me. Sometimes they just fade. One day you realize you haven't texted in weeks and then months, and eventually you're just watching them through a screen, wondering if they even notice that you're gone. Wondering, do they think about me the way that I think about them? Just wondering, right? And that hurts in a way that's hard to explain, because how do you grieve someone who's still alive? How do you grieve someone who's in the same friend group? How do you grieve someone that you never even really know why you lost them? I want to remind you that letting go doesn't make you cold. It means that you're honoring who you are now. And maybe who you're becoming doesn't fit who they were allowed to see you as, and that's okay. It doesn't make the memories any less real or the love that you had any less true. It just means that that season ended and you don't need permission to walk away from a friendship that stopped feeding you, that stopped filling that bucket. You don't need a villain to justify your peace. Sometimes the most honest goodbye is the one that you say to yourself. I still love who we were, but I love who I am becoming even more. With that, my friends, new episodes drop every Monday on all streaming platforms, so don't ghost me. Do not ghost me. If you want the unfiltered chaos, the YouTube version is definitely less edited and a little bit more raw. Like, follow, and subscribe, and do all the things, because that's how we build a community. We love a community. And if you're feeling nosy or opinionated, or both, come hang out on TikTok and Instagram at Dysfunctionally Yours Podcast. You'll get some behind the scenes, you get to vote in polls, and you can drop feedback or juicy confessions through the anonymous Google form. Until then, Dysfunctionals, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles, bye.